He didn't ask who I was. He asked only one thing. Who touched you? That night, the entire city of Ravenport changed the way it looked at me. All because of a bruise on my wrist. All because I stood behind the most dangerous man in the city. No one knew that just 3 hours earlier. I was still an invisible woman, scrubbing floors in his mansion. And no one knew that the child sleeping in my small, hidden room was the reason I was willing to sign a deal with the devil himself. Rain pressed softly against the glass walls of the Blackwood estate, blurring the world beyond into streaks of silver and shadow. The mansion was quiet, too quiet, like a held breath before something irreversible happened. I stood at the far end of the grand dining room, polishing a table long enough to seat kings, criminals, and men who never answered to either. The scent of wood polish clung to my hands, sharp and clean, nothing like the chaos that had brought me here. I wasn't supposed to be in this room. This wing belonged to Adrian Blackwood. The name alone carried weight in Ravenport. People spoke it carefully, as if the wrong tone might summon him. Others didn't speak it at all. They just knew when to step aside. The housekeeper assigned to this room had called in sick. I'd been sent as a replacement temporary, unnoticed, invisible. That was the plan. The rain grew heavier. Thunder rolled low and distant, echoing somewhere deep inside the mansion's bones. I was leaning forward to reach a missed spot when a voice cut through the silence. You missed a corner. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. My spine locked. Every instinct screamed at me not to turn around. I didn't have to. I knew that voice the way prey knows a predator's shadow. Adrian Blackwood. Slowly, carefully, I straightened and turned. He stood a few steps away, dressed in black as if the color had been designed for him alone. His presence altered the room, changed the air pressure, the gravity, dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes so calm they were unsettling. Not the calm of kindness, but the calm of absolute control. I'm sorry, sir, I said, keeping my gaze lowered. I'll redo it. Look at me. 2 words, not a request. I lifted my eyes. People said his gaze was frightening. They were wrong. Fear required chaos, unpredictability. Adrian Blackwood was precise, calculated. His eyes didn't burn, they measured. How long have you worked here, he asked. 3 months. You clean this room often? No, sir. I know. That single sentence sent a chill down my arms. He took a step closer, slow and deliberate, as if the distance between us belonged to him already. Your hands, he said. I glanced down instinctively. Red, rough, marked by disinfectants and long nights of work. These aren't the hands of a lifelong maid. My pulse stumbled. You were a nurse, he continued calmly. Neonatal unit, night shifts. The cloth slipped slightly in my grip. I had never told anyone that. Why? He asked softly. Would a woman trained to save fragile lives choose to scrub floors in my house? I swallowed. People change. No, he said, people run. Before I could respond, the doors swung open. Laughter entered the room before the man did. Well, a voice drawled. Didn't expect to find something this interesting hiding in your dining room. Blackwood. I recognized him instantly. Lucas Moretti. A man whose reputation lingered like smoke. Dangerous in a way that enjoyed being seen. His gaze slid to me, slow and invasive. Who's this? Not your concern, Adrian replied. Lucas smiled wider. Everything in this city is my concern. I took a step back, intending to leave, but Lucas moved faster. His hand closed around my wrist. Easy, he murmured. I just want to talk. Pain flared where his fingers dug in. I tried to pull away. Let go, I said, my voice tight. He didn't. The next moment unfolded with terrifying clarity. Who touched you? Adrian's voice dropped into the room like a blade. Lucas released me instantly. Adrian crossed the distance between us and gently took my wrist, turning it so the forming bruise was visible. His thumb brushed my pulse, steady and controlled. Who? He repeated, quieter now. Touched you? It's nothing, I said quickly, a misunderstanding. Adrian didn't look at me. His gaze was fixed on Lucas. You are no longer welcome here, he said. Lucas scoffed. Over a maid. The deal we discussed, Adrian continued, unhurried, is terminated, effective immediately. You'll regret this. Adrian finally met his eyes. No, you will. Security appeared as if summoned by thought alone. Lucas was escorted out, his protests echoing down the hall until the doors closed with finality. Silence returned. Adrian released my wrist. The warmth vanished, leaving behind a strange ache. Are you hurt? He asked. I shook my head. Good, he said. Then you'll have dinner with me tonight. My breath caught. Sir, That wasn't a question. He paused, as if reconsidering, then added quietly, Please. The word unsettled me more than any command. I left the room on unsteady legs, aware of eyes watching from every corner of the house. Whispers followed me like ghosts. By the time my shift ended, everyone knew. I wasn't just a maid anymore. The city learned faster than I did. My apartment was small, clean, anonymous, exactly what I needed. Leo slept peacefully in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling in soft rhythm. I pressed a kiss to his hair, breathing him in. Everything I had done, every lie, every sacrifice was for him. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hear you're in Ravenport. We need to talk about our son. The room tilted. Outside, through the thin curtains, I noticed a black car parked beneath the streetlight. Its engine idled quietly. Across the city, in a mansion guarded like a fortress, Adrian Blackwood stood before a wall of monitors. Find out who contacted her, he said coldly, and why. A pause. Then, softer almost to himself. And bring her here safely. Because the woman he had noticed by accident was no longer invisible. She was under his protection now, whether she wanted it or not. If this story touched your heart, follow the channel to enjoy many more heart-stirring stories every week. Bắt đầu viết phần 2 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 2, the deal that changed everything. The knock came at dawn. Not loud, not urgent, just firm enough to tell me it wasn't a request. I had barely slept. Leo's soft breathing was the only thing that kept me anchored through the night, through the echo of that message, through the image of the black car idling beneath my window. When the sound came again, my heart knew before my mind did. I opened the door to find 2 men in dark coats standing in the hallway. Neither smiled. Miss Carter, the taller one said, Mr. Blackwood has asked to see you. Asked. I glanced back at Leo, then at the men. I can't leave him. You won't, the other replied. He's coming with you. The drive to the Blackwood estate passed in heavy silence. The city looked different at this hour, softer, less guarded, yet I felt more exposed than ever. Leo slept in his carrier, unaware that his future was being negotiated by forces far beyond his understanding. The gates opened before we reached them. Inside, the mansion felt different than it had the night before. Less theatrical, more real. Morning light filtered through tall windows, revealing a space built not for display, but for endurance. Adrian was waiting in a smaller room this time. No suit, no polished mask, just dark trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing scars I hadn't noticed before. You came, he said. I nodded. You didn't give me much choice. He studied me for a moment, then his gaze softened barely. I never do. He noticed Leo immediately. How old? 10 months. Adrian moved closer, crouching slightly to meet my son's wide, curious eyes. Something unreadable crossed his face. He looks like you, he said, unafraid. I almost laughed, almost cried. We sat across from each other at a small table. No guards, no witnesses. I won't waste your time, Adrian began. The man who contacted you last night is Michael Grant. The name felt like a blade. You know him. I know his family, Adrian corrected. Old money, political reach, dangerous when cornered. He has no right to. To your son, Adrian finished quietly. You're wrong. My chest tightened. He hurt me. He almost... I know, Adrian said. His voice didn't waver. I know what he did, and I know what he's capable of. I stared at him. Then why are you helping me? He leaned back, fingers steepled. Because men like Grant don't stop unless someone stronger tells them to. And that's you, I asked. Yes. The certainty in his voice terrified me. I'm not asking for your loyalty. Adrian continued. I'm offering protection. At what cost? He met my eyes. You'll stay here, with your son. My breath caught. I can't. You already are, he replied calmly. Grant has resources, lawyers, connections. He will find you again. This city isn't safe unless you're under my name. I won't be owned, I said. Neither will I own you, Adrian said. But the world needs to believe I do. Silence stretched between us. What does that mean, I asked. It means, he said carefully, that you become mine in the eyes of the city, my companion, my chosen woman. I laughed a brittle sound. That's insane. It's effective. And when this is over, when Grant retreats, Adrian said, you and your son will be free, with enough money to disappear properly. I looked down at Leo, at the trust in his small hands gripping my sleeve. What if I refuse? Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer. Then I'll still protect your son. But not me. A pause? I'll do what I can, he said honestly. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't kindness. This was strategy sharpened by something dangerously close to care. I need rules, I said. Adrian's brow lifted slightly. Go on. No touching unless necessary. No lies to my child. And when I say stop, everything stops? He considered this, then nodded, agreed. And you, I added, meeting his gaze, will not become the man I ran from. Something dark flickered in his eyes. I won't. We stood at the same time. The proximity sent a current through me I wasn't prepared for. Your rooms are ready, he said. East wing, secure. He hesitated, then added, and tonight you'll dine with me, publicly. To be seen? Yes. As he turned to leave, he paused. One more thing. I looked up. This arrangement, Adrian said, will protect you, but it will also change you. The truth in his words settled heavy in my chest. That night, as I stood before a mirror in a dress that didn't feel like mine, I wondered who I would become under his shadow, and whether I would still recognize myself when the protection ended, or if I would want it to. Bắt đầu viết phần 3 với độ dài 1200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 3. When pretense became dangerous. The first thing I learned about living under Adrian Blackwood's roof was that nothing here was accidental. Every hallway curved with intention. Every window framed the outside world like a calculated promise, beautiful, distant, unreachable. Even the silence was designed. It didn't comfort, it observed. My rooms were located in the East Wing, as he had said, spacious, elegant, and secure. Too secure. The doors locked with a quiet hum. Cameras were discreet, but impossible to miss once you knew where to look. This was protection. This was also a cage. Leo adapted faster than I did. He laughed at the sunlight spilling across the floor, crawled toward the tall windows as if the world beyond belonged to him. Watching him, I felt a familiar ache in my chest, love sharpened by fear. That afternoon, a woman arrived. Her name was Victoria Hale, and she didn't knock. She entered my sitting room with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Tall, poised, impeccably dressed. She wore elegance like armor. Her eyes swept over me, then Leo, assessing in seconds what I had spent months protecting. So, she said lightly, you're the reason Ravenport is suddenly whispering again. I don't know what you mean, I replied. Victoria smiled. Of course you don't. She poured herself tea without asking and sat across from me. Adrian doesn't bring women into his life, she said. Not like this. Then you know him well. Well enough, she admitted. I'm his legal advisor. And his friend. The emphasis was deliberate. You're not what I expected, she continued. Not ambitious, not polished, not dangerous. I met her gaze, neither was he, once. Her smile faltered just slightly. That evening, the house transformed. The dining room filled with voices, with laughter that never reached the eyes, men in tailored suits, women wrapped in jewels and practiced charm. This wasn't a dinner. It was a performance. And I was the centerpiece. Adrian met me at the top of the stairs. He looked different, not softer, just closer. His hand hovered near my back, never touching, yet guiding every step. "You're doing well," he murmured. "I haven't done anything yet." He glanced at me, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "Exactly." As we entered the room, conversations shifted, gazes turned. I felt them weigh me, measure me against rumors that hadn't existed a week ago. Adrian introduced me simply, Evelyn. No title, no explanation. The omission spoke louder than any declaration. During dinner, I learned the rhythm of pretending, the way to lean in when Adrian spoke, when to remain silent, when to smile as if I belonged among people who could dismantle lives over dessert. Then the first challenge came. A senator's wife, blonde, immaculate, bored, tilted her head toward me. "And what do you do, Evelyn?" The table stilled. I felt Adrian's gaze, steady and waiting. This was the moment, the line between truth and survival. "I take care of what matters," I said. Something like approval flickered in his eyes. Later, as music filled the room and the guests drifted into smaller clusters, Adrian led me onto the terrace. The city glowed below us, unaware of the games being played above it. "You handled them well," he said. I felt like I was lying. "You were," he replied, convincingly. The compliment unsettled me. Before I could respond, Victoria joined us, her smile sharp. "Adrian, a word?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Excuse us?" Left alone, I leaned against the railing, breathing in the night air. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine this was normal, that I wasn't living inside someone else's narrative. Then a voice spoke behind me. "Evelyn Carter." I turned. Michael Grant stood a few feet away, his expression carefully neutral, older than I remembered, more dangerous. "How did you—" "Get in," he finished. "I was invited." My heart pounded. "You shouldn't be here." "You shouldn't be with him," Michael replied calmly. "Do you know what kind of man he is?" "Yes," I said, "I do." He smiled. "Then you know he won't protect you forever." I stepped back. "Stay away from my son." Michael's eyes hardened. "He's my son too." "No," I whispered. "He isn't." Before he could respond, Adrian appeared beside me. His presence was immediate, overwhelming. "You're mistaken," Adrian said coldly. "She's under my protection." Michael's gaze flicked between us. "Is that what this is?" Adrian didn't answer. He placed a hand on my lower back, light, possessive, unmistakable. "This conversation is over," he said. Michael studied us for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Enjoy the illusion," he said softly. "It won't last." After he left, the night felt colder. Inside, the party continued. Laughter rose, glasses clinked. But something had shifted. Later, when the guests were gone and the house settled into uneasy quiet, I found Adrian in his study. The city lights framed him like a silhouette carved from darkness. "You didn't tell me he'd be there," I said. "I didn't know," Adrian replied, "but I should have anticipated it. He'll come for Leo." "I won't let him." "You can't control everything." Adrian turned to face me fully. "No," he said, "but I can try." The intensity in his gaze sent a shiver through me. "This arrangement," he continued, "is no longer just for appearances." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," Adrian said, stepping closer, "that pretending is becoming dangerous." Our breaths mingled, the space between us charged with words unspoken. "Then maybe," I said quietly, "we should stop pretending." For the first time since I'd met him, Adrian hesitated. And in that hesitation, I realized something far more frightening than any threat Michael Grant could make. Adrian Blackwood was no longer sure where the act ended. And neither was I. Bắt đầu viết phần 4 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 4, the line we were never meant to cross. The night after the dinner felt heavier than any I had known inside the Blackwood estate. Not because of Michael Grant's appearance, though his presence lingered like a bruise beneath the skin, but because something quieter, more dangerous, had been set into motion. A shift I could not name. A boundary that no longer felt solid. Sleep refused to come. I lay awake listening to the soft hum of the security system, the distant echo of footsteps patrolling corridors that were meant to keep danger out, but somehow kept my thoughts trapped inside. Leo stirred in his crib, murmuring in his dreams, and I rose to soothe him, pressing my cheek against his warm hair. "Everything is fine," I whispered, unsure whether I was speaking to him or to myself. By morning, the estate had resumed its composed rhythm. Staff moved silently. Orders were carried out without question. But beneath the surface, I sensed tension tightening like a wire pulled too far. Adrian summoned me shortly after breakfast. Not with words, but with absence. His chair at the head of the table remained empty. His study door stayed closed longer than usual. The air itself seemed to wait. When he finally appeared, it was almost noon. "Walk with me," he said. No explanation, no delay. We moved through the gardens behind the house, where tall hedges cut the world into narrow corridors of green. The sky was overcast, heavy with the promise of rain. Adrian walked beside me, close enough that I felt the heat of him, far enough that his silence felt deliberate. "You shouldn't have been approached last night," he said at last. "I didn't invite him." "I know. Then why does it sound like blame?" He stopped walking. I turned to face him. His expression was controlled, but there was something beneath it, something restless. "Because I miscalculated," Adrian said, "and I don't make that mistake often." The admission surprised me more than any apology could have. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," he replied, "Grant will push harder. He believes your presence here is leverage." "I won't let him use Leo." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Neither will I." His certainty should have reassured me. Instead, it made my chest ache. "Protection has limits," I said quietly. "Eventually, people pay a price." Adrian's gaze locked onto mine. "I am willing to pay it." The words hung between us, dangerously sincere. Before I could respond, his phone vibrated. One glance at the screen changed his expression completely. "We need to go inside," he said. The storm arrived faster than expected. An attempted breach at one of the outer checkpoints. Nothing serious, nothing successful, but the message was clear someone was testing the perimeter. Security tightened. Movement became restricted. Leo was transferred to a more secure wing while I watched, helpless and furious. "This isn't what I agreed to," I said to Adrian as we stood outside the reinforced doors. "This is exactly what you agreed to," he replied evenly. "Safety? This feels like imprisonment." He turned to me then, really turned, the mask slipping just enough to reveal the man beneath. "I warned you," he said. "This world doesn't protect gently." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. Instead, I found myself asking, "Why does this bother you so much?" He looked away. "Because," Adrian said after a moment, "you didn't choose this life, and you did." A pause. "No," he admitted, "but I stayed." That night, the rain finally came. I stood by the window in my room, watching it streak down the glass, when a knock sounded at the door, soft, uncertain. Adrian stood there. He didn't enter right away, as if waiting for permission. "You should be resting," I said. "So should you?" Silence filled the space between us, thick and unspoken. "I reviewed your file," he said suddenly. I stiffened. "You said you wouldn't dig into my past." "I said I wouldn't use it against you." That wasn't comfort. "I know what Grant did to you," Adrian continued. "The reports, the settlements, the threats that never made it to court." My hands curled into fists. "Then you know why I ran." "Yes," he said, "and why you don't trust men who promise safety." His gaze softened not with pity, but with recognition. "I won't be like him," Adrian said. "You can't know that." "I do," he replied quietly, "because I'm afraid of becoming him." The confession struck deeper than anger ever could. Thunder rolled outside. The lights flickered briefly, then steadied. Adrian stepped closer, too close. "This arrangement," he said, "was meant to be controlled, contained. And now," he admitted, I find myself wanting things I didn't plan for. My breath caught. Adrian? He stopped, just inches away, close enough that I could feel his restraint like a living thing. This is where we stop, he said. Before we cross a line we can't return from. I nodded, even though my body betrayed me, leaning subtly toward his warmth. Yes, I whispered. We should. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched fragile, trembling. Then the alarm sounded. Not a drill. Not a test. A real breach. Adrian stepped back instantly, the man of control snapping into place. Stay here, he ordered. Lock the door. He was gone before I could respond. Minutes passed like hours. I paced, heart racing, every sound outside amplified by fear. Finally, the door opened again. Adrian returned, his shirt stained with blood. Not his. What happened, I demanded. Grant made a mistake, he said. He sent someone he shouldn't have. My stomach twisted. Is it over? For tonight, Adrian replied. I moved toward him without thinking, my hands trembling as I touched his arm. You're hurt? It's nothing. You're bleeding. He looked down at the cut, then back at me. I didn't feel it. I did. The realization settled slowly, terrifying in its clarity. This wasn't just protection anymore. This was attachment. And attachments, in Adrian Blackwood's world, were liabilities. As he turned to leave, he paused at the doorway. Evelyn, he said quietly. Yes. If I ask you to leave Ravenport, he continued, to disappear before this gets worse, would you? I thought of Leo, of safety, of the man standing before me, bleeding because of choices tied to my existence. I don't know, I answered honestly. Adrian nodded, as if he'd expected that. As the door closed behind him, I realized the truth I had been avoiding since the night I first met him. The danger was no longer outside these walls. It was standing right beside me, and part of me didn't want it to leave. Bắt đầu viết phần 5 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 5, The Cost of Staying. The morning after the breach arrived without apology. Sunlight crept through the curtains as if nothing had happened, illuminating a world that insisted on normalcy. But the Blackwood estate no longer breathed with the same quiet confidence. Guards rotated more frequently. Voices dropped to murmurs. Doors closed with intention. I watched Leo sleep, his small fist curled beneath his chin, and wondered how long innocence could exist inside walls built for war. Adrian didn't come to breakfast. Instead, Victoria Hale appeared in my sitting room before I had finished my tea. She carried a tablet and an expression sharpened by urgency. We need to talk, she said. I'm tired of hearing that, I replied. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Good. That means you understand the gravity. She tapped the screen, revealing headlines I hadn't seen yet. Market fluctuations, political pressure. A charity gala announcement bearing Adrian's name and beneath it mine. You're being positioned, Victoria said, publicly. For what? For permanence? The word landed heavily. I didn't agree to that. No, she said, but the city will believe you did. I set the cup down carefully. Where is Adrian? In meetings, she replied, trying to contain a situation that's evolving faster than expected. Because of me. Because of Grant, Victoria corrected. And because Adrian is doing something he rarely does, reacting emotionally. Her gaze softened. That's dangerous for him. And for me? Yes. The truth hung between us, unvarnished. By afternoon, the estate buzzed with preparations. The gala would be held in 3 days, attendance mandatory, cameras unavoidable. Adrian finally found me in the garden just before dusk. He looked composed again, too composed. The blood from the night before had been cleaned away, but something lingered behind his eyes. You should have heard it from me, he said. I should have, I agreed. I needed time to decide what I was worth. The bitterness surprised even me. He flinched just slightly, to decide how to protect you without destroying everything else. I turned away, watching the sky darken. You don't get to decide alone. I know, he said. That's why I'm asking you now. He stepped closer, careful not to touch me. Stay, publicly, at the gala. After that, we reassess. And if I say no, Adrian exhaled slowly. Then I'll still keep Grant away from your son. But you'll leave. Tonight. The choice was sharp and immediate. Why does this feel like punishment? I asked quietly. Because every option costs something, Adrian replied. And I won't lie to you about the price. I thought of Leo, of running again, of the constant fear that followed us like a shadow. I'll stay, I said. The relief in his eyes was fleeting and followed quickly by something darker. Then we do this properly, he said. That night, I found a dress laid out on my bed, simple, elegant, unmistakably deliberate. A note rested beside it, written in Adrian's precise hand. Not armor, just truth. I didn't know what that meant, not yet. The days that followed blurred into preparation, appearances, conversations rehearsed without words. Adrian and I learned each other's rhythms, the way he paused before speaking when thinking. The way I touched Leo's back unconsciously when anxious. It was intimacy without permission. On the evening of the gala, the estate transformed again. Lights glowed warmer. Music hummed softly. The city arrived at our door dressed in velvet and expectation. Adrian met me at the staircase. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. You're sure? He asked. No, I replied, but I'm here. His hand hovered, then settled lightly at my waist. The touch was restrained, careful, and yet it sent a current through me stronger than any kiss could have. As we entered the hall, cameras flashed, conversations stilled. I felt the weight of every gaze, every assumption. This is Evelyn, Adrian said calmly to those who approached. No titles, no explanations. The city filled in the rest. I smiled when required, listened when expected, spoke only when necessary. And all the while, I sensed the shift the way people adjusted their behavior around me, the way my presence recalibrated Adrian's influence. Halfway through the evening, Michael Grant appeared. He didn't approach immediately. He watched, calculated. When he finally stepped forward, his smile was practiced. You look well, he said. I am, I replied. His gaze flicked to Adrian. Is that what this is? Wellness? Adrian's hand tightened slightly at my waist. Leave, he said quietly. Not yet, Michael replied. I came to congratulate you. For what? For choosing a side. Before I could respond, Michael leaned closer. Just remember, he whispered. Sides change. Security moved in, subtle but firm. Michael retreated, his eyes never leaving mine. The music swelled. The moment passed. But something had been ignited. Later, as the gala wound down and the guests departed, Adrian and I stood alone on the terrace once more. The city glittered below, indifferent to the war unfolding above it. You did well, he said. So did you. Silence stretched between us, different now. Charged. This isn't sustainable, I said. No, Adrian agreed, but it's real. I turned to face him fully. I won't be your weakness. His gaze softened, something unguarded breaking through. You already are. The admission stole my breath. And you, I said, voice trembling, are becoming something I don't know how to survive. He reached for me then, not possessive, not commanding, just honest. Stay tonight, Adrian said quietly, not as part of the arrangement. The world narrowed to that moment, that choice. I thought of everything I stood to lose, and everything I already had. I'll stay, I said. But even as I spoke the words, I understood the truth neither of us dared to say aloud. Staying was no longer about safety. It was about what we were willing to risk to keep each other. Bắt đầu viết phần 6 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 6, What We Could Not Undo. Night settled over the Blackwood estate like a secret neither of us knew how to keep. The gala had ended hours ago, yet its echoes lingered in the halls, in the way my heartbeat refused to slow, in the quiet awareness that something irrevocable had already begun. I stood by the window of my room, watching the city lights flicker like distant promises. when a soft knock sounded behind me. I didn't need to ask who it was. Adrian didn't speak when he entered. He closed the door carefully, as if noise itself might shatter the fragile line we were walking. The room felt smaller with him inside it, charged with the weight of things unsaid. I meant what I said, he began quietly, about tonight. I know, I replied. That's what scares me. He stopped a few steps away, not touching, not retreating, balanced on restraint. This changes things, I continued. Once we stop pretending, there's no way back. Adrian's gaze held mine, dark and unwavering. I've never needed a way back. The honesty in his voice sent a tremor through me. I crossed my arms, trying to anchor myself. You don't get to want me without consequences. I'm aware, he said. I live with consequences. Silence fell again, heavier now, intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for. I could feel him not physically, but as presence, as gravity drawing me closer with every breath. Adrian took a step forward. If you tell me to leave, he said, I will. The choice rested in my hands, trembling and uncertain. I didn't tell him to leave. Instead, I whispered, stay. The word changed the air between us. Adrian closed the remaining distance slowly, deliberately, as if giving me time to change my mind. When his hand finally touched my cheek, it was reverent, almost cautious. Not the touch of a man claiming something, but of one asking permission. I leaned into it before fear could stop me. The kiss was quiet, unhurried, not consuming, but exploratory, as if we were learning a language neither of us had spoken before. When we parted, our foreheads rested together, breaths tangled. This doesn't make you safe, he murmured. I know. It makes you vulnerable. So does loving someone, I replied softly. Adrian stilled. I realized then that I had said the word without meaning to, or perhaps I had meant it long before I was ready to admit it. He didn't kiss me again. Instead, he pulled back just enough to look at me properly. Sleep, he said. We'll talk in the morning. It wasn't rejection, it was restraint. And somehow, that made it more dangerous. Morning came too soon. The estate buzzed with quiet urgency, but something else threaded through it now. Anticipation sharpened by unease. I sensed it even before Adrian's absence confirmed it. Victoria found me in the corridor just after breakfast. Her expression was grave. We have a problem, she said. Grant. She nodded. He's filed an emergency motion. Custody. Allegations. Enough political backing to make it messy. My chest tightened. On what grounds? Stability, Victoria replied carefully. Environment. Associations. The words cut deeper than any accusation. He's using Adrian, I said. He's trying to, she corrected, and he's not alone. Adrian joined us moments later. The tension in his posture told me everything before he spoke. I'm handling it, he said. By what means, I asked. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low, the kind that end problems. Fear flared not for myself, but for him. I won't let you destroy yourself because of me, I said. Adrian turned to me sharply. This isn't about you. Yes, it is, I insisted. Every move you make now will be traced back to me, to Leo. He closed his eyes briefly, as if steadying himself. Then tell me what you want. I hesitated. The truth felt dangerous. I want you alive. I said, I want my son safe. And I want us to stop pretending that brute force fixes everything. Adrian studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Then we do this differently, he said, publicly, legally, painfully. The next days unfolded with relentless precision. Lawyers arrived. Statements were drafted. Adrian's name appeared in places it never had before court documents. News articles. Whispered speculation that questioned whether the infamous Blackwood was losing control. Michael Grant made sure the cameras caught his concern, his sympathy, his false devotion to fatherhood. I wanted to scream every time I saw his face on a screen. Instead, I stayed quiet. Adrian insisted I attend meetings with him not to speak, but to be seen. His hand at my back became a constant presence, grounding and unmistakable. You don't have to do this, I told him one evening as we returned from another exhausting session. Yes, he replied, I do. We argued more during those days than we had since meeting. About risk, about trust, about the invisible line between protection and control. But we didn't pull away. If anything, the tension drew us closer. One night, unable to sleep, I found Adrian in the training room beneath the estate. He was barehanded, striking a heavy bag with controlled violence. "You're bleeding," I said. He ignored it. "You can't fight this like a war," I said quietly. He stopped at that. Turning to face me, his chest rising and falling, Adrian asked, "Then how?" "With patience," I replied, "with restraint, with faith." He laughed softly, humorless. Those aren't tools I was taught to use. I stepped closer, took his injured hand in mine. "You're learning," I said. He looked down at our joined hands, something like wonder crossing his face. "I'm terrified," he admitted. The confession startled me more than any threat could have. "So am I," I said. That night, we didn't touch. We sat together in silence, shoulder to shoulder, sharing a fear neither of us could afford to show the world. And somewhere in that quiet, I understood something with devastating clarity. Love hadn't entered our lives like a storm. It had arrived like a slow tide, subtle, relentless, impossible to stop. The court date loomed closer. Grant's smile grew bolder. The city waited for blood or scandal. And Adrian Blackwood, the man who controlled everything, was standing at the edge of something he could not dominate. Neither of us knew who would survive it. Only that whatever came next would change us forever. Bắt đầu viết phần 7 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama. Dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 7. The Truth That Broke the Illusion. The court date drew closer, and with it came a different kind of silence, one that wasn't empty, but sharpened. It pressed into every corner of the Blackwood estate, settling in the pauses between conversations, in the way people avoided my eyes, in the tension Adrian carried like a second skin. The city had begun to choose sides. Headlines multiplied. Commentators speculated. Michael Grant's name appeared beside words like concerned father and unstable environment. Adrian's, beside phrases more carefully measured, powerful, controversial, dangerous. I learned quickly how fragile public truth could be. Leo sensed it before I did. He clung to me more, cried at unfamiliar voices, startled at sudden sounds. Every time I held him, I wondered how much of this he would one day remember not as memory, but as instinct. Adrian watched us from a distance those days, not withdrawn, but restrained, as if closeness itself had become another risk to calculate. One afternoon, Victoria requested a private meeting. "This stays between us," she said once the door was closed. I nodded, bracing myself. "There's a leak," she continued. "Internal. Someone is feeding Grant information movement, schedules, legal strategy." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "We don't know yet," she said. "But the information is precise. That narrows it down." My mind raced. Staff, security, associates, or me. "Do they think it's me?" I asked quietly. Victoria hesitated just long enough to answer the question without words. "Adrian doesn't," she said carefully. "Others are less certain." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "Then why am I still here?" "Because," Victoria replied, "if you leave now, it looks like guilt. And if you stay, you're in danger." I let out a shaky breath. "Those aren't choices." "They rarely are," she said. That night, Adrian came to my room later than usual. He looked exhausted, no, burdened, as if every decision he made pulled something essential from him. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded, already knowing this conversation would change something. "There's a breach," Adrian continued. "Someone close to us is working with Grant." "I know," I said. His eyes flickered. "Victoria told you." "Yes." Silence fell between us, thick with unspoken fears. "They're watching everything," Adrian said. "Every move, every word." I studied his face, including us. "Yes." The answer was immediate, certain. "You don't trust me," I said. "That's not true," he replied. "But you're wondering if you should." Adrian didn't deny it. The hurt was quiet but profound. "I've given you everything." I said, "The truth, my son, my fear. And I've put you in the line of fire," he said fiercely. "Do you think that doesn't haunt me?" He took a step closer, his voice lowering. "If something happens to Leo, then it won't be because of me," I said. "It will be because you decided control mattered more than trust." The words cut deeper than I intended. Adrian stiffened. "That's not fair." "No," I agreed, "but it's honest." We stood there, the space between us heavy with the weight of what we couldn't afford to say. "I need you to leave the estate," Adrian said finally. The words struck like a physical blow. "For how long?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Until we identify the leak," he said. "Until I can guarantee your safety." "And Leo?" "With you," he said, "always." I shook my head slowly. "If I leave now, Grant wins." "If you stay," Adrian countered, "you may lose everything." My chest ached. "You're pushing me away." "I'm protecting you," he insisted. "By breaking us." He flinched at that. "This isn't about us," he said. "That's where you're wrong," I replied softly. "It always has been." The decision was made without ceremony, without tenderness. By dawn, our lives had been separated again. I was escorted to a secure residence outside the city, anonymous, fortified, suffocating in its quiet. Leo slept through the journey, unaware of the fracture unfolding around him. The days that followed were worse than fear. They were empty. Adrian didn't call. He sent updates through intermediaries, short, factual, devoid of emotion. Proceedings delayed, Grant escalated, leak still unidentified. I told myself this was necessary. That distance was protection. But at night, when Leo slept and the silence grew unbearable, I wondered if this was what Adrian truly wanted: control without vulnerability. Then the truth arrived. Not as revelation, but as consequence. Victoria came to see me in person, her expression pale. "We found the leak," she said. I sat up sharply. "Who?" She hesitated. "One of Adrian's closest lieutenants? Someone he trusted since childhood." My breath caught. "Does Adrian know?" "Yes," she said. "And Grant knows that Adrian knows." "What does that mean?" "It means," Victoria said carefully, "that Grant is moving faster. He believes Adrian is distracted. By me." "And Adrian?" I asked. Victoria's gaze softened. "He's planning something dangerous." Panic flared. "I need to talk to him." She shook her head. "He won't answer." "Then take me to him." "You can't," she said. "If you do, you become leverage again." I stood anyway. I already am. That night, as I paced the room, my phone buzzed. One message. "I made the wrong choice." My heart stuttered. Before I could respond, another arrived. "If anything happens to me, take Leo and disappear. I've arranged everything." Tears blurred my vision. "Nothing is happening to you," I typed back furiously. The response came slower this time. That's the problem. Hours later, the news broke. A violent confrontation, multiple arrests, one critical injury. Adrian Blackwood had been rushed to the hospital. I didn't remember leaving the room, or the drive through the city, or the moment security tried to stop me. I only remembered standing beside his hospital bed, watching machines breathe for the man who had never allowed himself to need anything. His skin was pale, his hand cold in mine. "I'm here," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere." For the first time since we met, Adrian Blackwood was powerless. And in that fragile stillness, I realized something terrifying. Love hadn't made him weak. It had made him human. And humans could be broken. Bắt đầu viết phần 8 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 8, the moment everything hung in balance. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet despair. Machines hummed steadily beside Adrian's bed, their rhythmic sounds both reassuring and cruel. They reminded me that he was alive and that he wasn't awake. I sat close enough to feel the faint warmth of his hand beneath my fingers, afraid that if I let go, he might drift somewhere I couldn't follow. This man had ruled rooms with a glance, had bent cities without raising his voice. Now he lay still, vulnerable, bound to wires and white sheets. I pressed my forehead against his knuckles and closed my eyes. "You don't get to leave," I whispered. "Not like this." Hours blurred into one another. Doctors came and went, speaking in measured tones about internal bleeding, surgery, recovery, words that carried hope wrapped in caution. No guarantees, no timelines. Victoria arrived just before dawn. She looked different here, stripped of her usual armor. Hair loose, eyes rimmed red. "He's stable," she said softly. "For now." I nodded, though my body felt hollow. What happened? "An internal betrayal finally surfaced," she replied. "Adrian confronted it himself. He didn't wait for backup." "Of course he didn't," I murmured. Victoria watched me carefully. "Grant is already capitalizing on this." My jaw tightened. "How?" "He's filed an emergency petition. Claims Adrian's condition proves instability. That your son is in danger." The anger rose slowly, burning instead of flaring. "He planned this." "Yes," she said, "and no." I turned to her. "What does that mean?" "Grant didn't expect Adrian to be this badly hurt," Victoria said. "But he's never wasted an opportunity." I stood, suddenly restless. "Then we don't give him one." Victoria hesitated. "Evelyn?" "No," I said firmly. "I've been protected, hidden, moved like a piece on a board. That ends now." She studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "There is another option." I waited. "You could speak," she said, "publicly. Not about Adrian's business, but about your life, your choices, your reasons for being here." My heart raced. That would make things worse. "Or clearer," she countered. "Grant thrives on distortion. Truth limits his reach." I glanced back at Adrian, at the man who had risked everything to shield me from the world. I won't let him be destroyed in silence. The press conference was arranged within hours. I barely recognized myself as I stood behind the podium. Leo asleep in my arms. Cameras flashed. Voices murmured. The city leaned forward, hungry for scandal. I didn't give them one. "I didn't come to Ravenport seeking protection," I said steadily. "I came seeking survival." The words settled the room. I left my marriage because it was violent, because my son deserved better than fear disguised as family. I met the cameras head on. Adrian Blackwood didn't take me in as a possession. He gave me safety when the system failed. Questions erupted. Accusations followed. I answered only what mattered. "He is not the danger," I concluded. "The danger is what happens when powerful men believe they are entitled to what they lost." The silence afterward was profound. Grant responded within the hour. A statement, carefully worded, sympathy, concern, denial. But something had shifted. Back at the hospital, I returned to Adrian's side. The room felt different now, lighter, as if the truth had made space to breathe. That night, his fingers twitched. I leaned forward instantly. "Adrian?" His lashes fluttered. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened. For a moment, he looked lost. Then his gaze found me. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered hoarsely. Tears spilled before I could stop them. "You don't get to decide that." A faint smile touched his lips, still stubborn. "You taught me," I said. He tried to move, grimaced. I pressed my hand gently to his chest. "Don't—" "Leo," he murmured. "Is he?" "He's safe," I assured him, "because of you." He closed his eyes briefly, relief softening his features. "I made a mess," he said quietly. "No," I replied. "You made a stand." The days that followed were fragile but hopeful. Adrian healed slowly. Each small improvement felt like a victory, hard won. The custody battle grew more complex, but less certain for Grant. Public sentiment shifted, questions were asked, investigations followed. And for the first time, Adrian allowed others to carry some of the weight. One evening, as the city lights shimmered beyond the hospital window, he reached for my hand again. Stronger this time. "I thought pushing you away would protect you," he said. I squeezed his fingers. "It almost cost you everything." "And you," he asked softly, "what did it cost you?" I thought of fear, of choice, of standing in the light when hiding would have been easier. "It cost me the illusion that I could survive without risking my heart." I said. His gaze held mine, raw and unguarded. I don't deserve you. I smiled sadly. That's not how this works. He exhaled, a sound that carried both relief and surrender. Stay, he said. Not as a command. As a plea? I'm not going anywhere, I replied. Outside, the city continued its restless movement. Battles waited. Consequences loomed. But in that room between the hum of machines and the quiet strength of survival, we found something neither of us had planned for. Not safety. Not control. But the courage to face what came next together. Bắt đầu viết phần 9, chuẩn bị cho kết thúc HE phần 10 với độ dài 1.200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả. Tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 9. The choice that sealed our fate. Recovery did not come gently. Adrian returned to the estate weeks later, thinner, slower, stripped of the illusion of invincibility. The city noticed. So did his enemies. Power, once unquestioned, now watched more closely measured, tested, weighed for weakness. And yet, something else had changed too. The man who walked beside me through the Blackwood gates that evening was not the same one who had first noticed me in his dining room. He no longer ruled from distance alone. He listened. He paused. He allowed himself to be seen. That frightened his rivals far more than violence ever had. Leo adapted again, as children do. He learned the rhythm of the house, the sound of Adrian's footsteps, the way Adrian knelt to meet him at eye level instead of lifting him high like a trophy. Watching them together stirred something dangerously close to hope in me. But hope, I knew, was never free. Victoria called the meeting 2 days later. Grant's case was unraveling slowly, strategically, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He still had influence, still had reach, and he was desperate. He's going to force a final confrontation, Victoria said, legally or otherwise. Adrian leaned back in his chair, unreadable. Let him... No, I said quietly. That's what he wants. Both of them turned to me. Grant had spent years pushing me into corners, emotionally, legally, psychologically, until survival felt like surrender. I wouldn't let him do it again. Not to me, not to Adrian, not to my son. There's one thing he doesn't expect, I continued, something he can't manipulate. And what's that, Adrian asked? I met his gaze, the truth, all of it. The room stilled. Victoria spoke first. That would expose more than just Grant. I know, I said it would expose Adrian too. Adrian studied me carefully. You're asking me to dismantle parts of my own empire. I'm asking you to choose what you want to keep, I replied. Silence followed, not empty, but waited. Later that night, Adrian found me in the nursery, watching Leo sleep. You're right, he said quietly. Grant survives because people fear what he might reveal. And you, I asked softly. I survive because people fear what I might do. He sat beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. Fear built everything I have. And love, I asked. He exhaled slowly. Love is the one thing I never planned for. The next morning, Adrian Blackwood made a move no one anticipated. He invited scrutiny. Documents were released carefully curated, strategically framed. Not confessions, but clarifications. Proof of corruption that reached far beyond Michael Grant, financial trails, political favors, names that made headlines tremble. Grant retaliated immediately. A public accusation, a press statement painted in outrage and concern. He demanded full custody of Leo, citing moral danger and criminal proximity. This time, the response was swift. The court issued an emergency injunction against Grant. Evidence surfaced that he had buried years ago. Medical reports, witness statements, financial coercion, patterns of abuse he had believed untouchable. The man who once controlled the narrative began to unravel on camera. Still, the final hearing loomed. The night before it, Adrian stood alone on the terrace, staring out at the city that had shaped him. I joined him quietly, the cool air wrapping around us. If this ends the way we hope, he said, nothing will ever be the same. That's the point, I replied. He turned to me. If the court rules against Grant, I'll be free to choose a different future. And if it doesn't, I asked. His gaze held mine. Then I walk away from everything that endangers you. My heart clenched. You'd leave Ravenport. I'd leave power, he corrected. They're not the same thing. I reached for his hand. I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself. You didn't have to, he said. I already decided. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't about control anymore. It was about legacy. Morning arrived with ruthless clarity. The courtroom buzzed with tension, anticipation thick as fog. Grant sat across the room, polished and pale, his confidence cracking at the edges. Adrian sat beside me, not looming, not distant, just present. When I was called to testify, the room held its breath. I spoke calmly, clearly. I didn't dramatize the past. I didn't soften it either. I told the truth not as a weapon, but as a line finally drawn. Grant watched me with disbelief. He had never imagined I would stop running. When Adrian was called, the shift was palpable. He spoke with precision, not denying his past, but contextualizing it, drawing boundaries, claiming responsibility where it belonged. Not the monster the city feared, not the savior others projected, just a man choosing what to protect. The ruling was delayed. Hours stretched. News outlets speculated wildly. The city waited. As we sat together in the quiet afterward, Adrian leaned closer. Whatever happens, he said softly, I don't regret choosing you. I turned to him, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I don't regret staying. When the call finally came, it wasn't loud. Just decisive. Grant lost. Custody denied. Investigations opened. Immunity stripped. The man who had chased power through control was left with nothing to hold on to. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Adrian shielded Leo instinctively, one hand firm at my back. What happens now? I asked quietly. He looked at us, really looked. Now, Adrian said, we decide how we live. The city would talk. Power would rearrange itself. Consequences would come. But as we walked forward together, no longer hiding, no longer pretending I knew the ending was within reach. Not because the danger was gone, but because, for the first time, we were choosing each other freely. And that choice changed everything. Bắt đầu viết he phần 10 với độ dài mồm này 200 từ. Phong cách viết truyện ngôn tình, lãng mạn, kịch tính, drama, dùng từ ngữ khéo léo, tinh tế, thuyết phục khán giả, tránh lặp đi lặp lại nội dung phần trước, không có lời kêu gọi hành động ở phần này. Part 10, where we finally belonged. The city of Ravenport woke to a quieter morning. Not peaceful Ravenport was never that, but changed. Power had shifted in ways that wouldn't be visible to most people for months, perhaps years. Deals were undone. Alliances dissolved. Names once spoken with certainty were now whispered with caution. Michael Grant's fall had not been dramatic. No handcuffs before cameras. No public collapse. Just disappearance. His influence evaporated like mist burned away by daylight, leaving behind questions no one rushed to answer. The system that once bent around him adjusted, imperfectly but undeniably, and moved on. So did we. Adrian sold the Eastern holdings within weeks, properties tied to old alliances, old blood, old debts. He didn't dismantle everything, he was too intelligent for that, but he restructured with a precision that startled even his closest associates. Power remained. Control changed hands. The Blackwood estate grew quieter, less guarded, still secure, but no longer braced for war. Some nights, I would stand by the windows and realize something astonishing. I wasn't afraid anymore. The realization came softly, without ceremony. It came the first morning I walked Leo through the gardens alone. No guards in sight. The sun warmed his hair. He laughed at the sound of birds I didn't recognize. Adrian watched from the terrace, not with vigilance, but with wonder. You look like you belong here, he said later, when Leo had fallen asleep in my arms. I studied him. He was healing, still marked, still scarred, but grounded in a way I hadn't seen before. So do you. He smiled faintly. I'm still learning how. Ravenport adjusted to us in its own way. Some doors closed quietly. Others opened wider than expected. Invitations arrived, charity boards, public initiatives. Foundations that wanted Adrian's influence redirected rather than erased. He surprised everyone by accepting some of them. Not to be absolved, but to be accountable. I returned to nursing part-time at a private clinic across the river. The work was grounding, honest. My hands remembered what to do long before my mind could question whether I deserved normalcy again. Adrian never tried to stop me. "Your life didn't pause for me," he said once. "It shouldn't restart because of me either." That night, as we lay together in the quiet of his bedroom, no guards outside the door, no alarms humming like a threat, I traced the scar along his ribs. "You're not the man I thought you were," I murmured. He turned his head to look at me. "Is that a disappointment?" "No," I said softly. "It's a relief." Weeks passed, then months. The court finalized the custody ruling. Permanent, irrevocable. Leo's future, finally untethered from fear. The day the documents arrived, I cried harder than I had during the trial. Adrian didn't say anything. He just held me, steady and warm, letting the grief of survival pass through me without trying to fix it. That night, after Leo was asleep, Adrian led me to the terrace. The city glowed below us, vast and indifferent and alive. "I'm leaving the council," he said. I blinked. "You are?" "Yes." "You don't sound conflicted." "I was," he admitted, "once." He took my hands in his. But power without purpose becomes a prison. I've lived in one long enough. "What will you do instead?" His gaze softened. "Build something that lasts." I smiled. "That sounds dangerously optimistic." "Blame you," he said. The proposal wasn't elaborate. No audience, no spectacle. Just Adrian, standing before me in the fading light, his expression unguarded in a way the city would never see. "I don't know how to promise you safety forever," he said quietly, "or ease, or a life untouched by consequence." I felt my chest tighten. "Then don't." He swallowed. "What I can promise is this: I will choose you. Every day. Even when it costs me." Tears blurred my vision. "I don't need perfection." "I know," he said. "You never asked for it." He knelt anyway. Not because tradition demanded it, but because humility did. "Stay," Adrian said. "Not because you need protection. Not because the world expects it. Stay because you want to build a life with me." I didn't hesitate. Yes. The word felt like coming home. We didn't rush the wedding. There was no need. When it happened, it was simple, private. A quiet ceremony on the estate grounds beneath old trees that had witnessed worse histories than ours. Victoria stood beside me, eyes bright with something like pride. Adrian's closest allies watched with a reverence I hadn't expected. Leo toddled down the path scattering petals, oblivious to symbolism, delighted by the attention. Adrian's vows were brief. Mine were steadier than I thought they'd be. When he kissed me, it wasn't possession. It was partnership. Later, as dusk settled and laughter drifted across the lawn, I found Adrian standing alone, watching Leo chase fireflies near the hedges. "You're thinking again," I said. "I'm realizing," he replied, pulling me close, that everything I once feared losing was never what mattered. I leaned into him, and what does... He kissed my temple. Us. The city still whispered our names. Stories would always follow. But they no longer defined us. Because the woman who once scrubbed his floors and the man who once ruled from shadows had chosen something rarer than power, they had chosen a life built not on fear, but on love, freely given, fiercely protected, and finally, fully returned.